the football season, pre-UFL, which returns in March.
Let's go, baby.
We will not be live for that. But the football season is now in the rearview mirror. The final game is behind us, and let's talk about it. Eagles 40, Chiefs 22, in a game that wasn't even that close. Let's start off. We'll get into kind of the what it means for both teams. How do both teams go get back from here? But just the game itself, or the whatever that was, for 4 hours on a Sunday night on Fox. I thought they'd have to put parental advisories on a beating that bad, but I'm not sure. Thoughts on the game itself?
Would we have to put parental advisories on the beating that Drake took during the halftime show?
Yeah. Yes. I think
on a scale of who took the bigger ass beating at Super Bowl 59, Drake or the Kansas City Chiefs?
From what I understand, Drake did. Yeah. I mean, the Chiefs, at least, by the end of the national anthem, they put up a fight. But yeah, wow. Just ass kickings all around on Sunday.
It was so elegantly put on Twitter by a friend of mine. Belt to ass. Because that's what that was.
Yeah.
And here's the deal. Anyone who wants to come after me, don't worry. I'm not hard to find.
Come after me.
Exactly. For the first time in Patrick Mahomes' career, he finally felt what it felt like to be Joe Burrow for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
You have no offensive line. You have no idea what the fuck's going on. You can't make an audible at the line to save your life.
Nope. Nothing. Couldn't do a single thing.
And here's the thing. Kudos to Sirianni, Spagnuolo. Not Spagnuolo. Vic Fangio.
Yeah, Spagnuolo was the guy that did all he could
to stop Saquon Barkley and still found a way to not win a game when he only ran for like 60 yards.
Yeah.
More on that later. Because I don't think it's Steve Spagnuolo's fault at all, and I'm going to defend him.
No, look, I'll get it out of the way. The Chiefs, if anybody's blaming the Chiefs' defense
trash
for what happened Sunday, you're doing it wrong. That unit did everything it could to even stay alive and have a chance.
Yeah, especially because they stopped, I don't know, the best running back in football, the offensive player of the year, gave themselves a shot to stay in ball game. But when you turn the ball over, as much as Patrick LaVon Mahomes II did, that's a problem.
Yeah.
You keep giving an offense as explosive as the Eagles with A.J. Brown, with Devontae Smith, short fields, and they keep cashing in. That's an issue, boys. And guess what? For the first time, and I will go on record and say this, for the first time since his Super Bowl loss to Thomas Edward Patrick Bieber Brady, Patrick Mahomes just looks like a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't look like Superman hitting the phone booth and coming out. Sure, did he make one of the smoothest looking 50-plus yard touchdown passes of all time? Sure. Credit to, I think, who was that? Xavier Worthy for running underneath that. That was a hell of a fucking play. Yeah. I'll give the devil his due on that one. But at the end of the day, he looked like Joe Flacco.
Yeah, I mean,
he didn't do anything at the line to change anything. The run game wasn't working. He was running for his life. And oh, by the way, Vic Fangio didn't calling 0 blitzes.
Right? Like
0.0.
Yeah, 4-man rushes all night.
So what does that tell you? There's an offensive line problem in Kansas City.
A little bit.
Guess what? When you're able to do the things that you can do defensively with arguably one of the best defenses in football. Shout out Chris Jones. Should have probably finished a little bit higher in the defensive player of the year, but I won't take it away from PS2. We'll probably talk about that in a little while. But what I'll say to that discredit is, like, when that defense keeps you in this many football games, it's only a matter of time until the shoe falls off Cinderella's foot.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? It didn't fall off her foot. It got yanked off of her foot and thrown at her as she was running to the pumpkin.
Yeet. Yeah.
And Devin, I'll say you're wrong. Patrick Mahomes did not screw Patrick Mahomes.
Correct.
Joe Tunney, Creed Humphreys, and the rest of that offensive line screwed Patrick Mahomes because that guy could not have more than 3 seconds to decide if he wanted to look left or right. That is a shout out to the defense, the front four, the Jalen Carters, the other guys in that defensive line for the Philadelphia Eagles, because that worked. You want to know what also it helped do? It also helped guys like Cooper DeJean and Reed Blankenship and guys like that be able to stay in the middle of the field, which is what Kansas City has been able to dominate the entire course of the year.
Right.
So when you take away Travis Kelce, when you make Samaje Perine try to catch in traffic, when you try to get guys who are not able to catch the ball.
Great, Bob.
That's what this comes down to.
Yeah.
When I look at this game, Vic Fangio, A+.
1,000%.
Defense of the Philadelphia Eagles won this game more than anything that Mahomes did per se wrong to give away this football game.
Yeah, look, I mean, there's we already got out of the way. The Chiefs defense is not the reason they lost. Patrick Mahomes certainly didn't have his best day at the office. Not the reason the Chiefs lost. Somebody tell DeAndre Hopkins, as this was a topic of conversation throughout the season and the postseason. The officials are not the reason why the Chiefs lost. Here and like to that point, and it's going to be a quick point. There was a bad call against Philly on the first drive. There was
the AJ Brown pass interference call where they were hand checking and he swatted the guy in the face and threw the flag.
Bad call. Then there was a bad the late hit call.
Defenseless receivers, I believe what it was called, because the guy made contact to whoever's head.
And that was against the Chiefs. That was a bad call. Outside of that, I don't think there was anything egregious. Were there things missed for both teams? Yes. Were there things called that maybe were ticky-tack for both teams? Yes. But I'm sorry. When you look at a 40-22 final in a game that, again, was not even that close, it wasn't the officials, bro. It wasn't the officials. Like, that is a silly look. When you're in a game where Kenny Pickett is coming in and throwing footballs, it ain't the officials. But
Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley individually outran the Kansas City Chiefs as a team.
Yes.
That's a fucking problem.
Yeah. And I mean, it's hard to even really talk about like the game because there really wasn't much of a game. When it's just this lopsided, I mean, it was 100% just domination from on one side. This was a one-sided game. Like the only reason that I remained tuned in, and I don't care if people believe me or not. The only reason I remained tuned in was because of this show. I'm like, I have to stay tuned in case something like major happens. But like by the second half, I couldn't tell you one commercial that aired during the second half. I couldn't really tell you one big play that happened in the second half or anything, because mentally I'm working on stuff on the computer. I'm looking at social media. I'm playing games on my iPad. It was so far gone by the time we got into the second half that it's like there's no real reason to watch here. Like, and don't get me wrong, I've been, as a fan, I've been involved in these games. See Alabama Notre Dame in 2012. See Notre Dame in before this year when they made it to the college football playoff. So this isn't me taking a shot at the Chiefs. I've been in that spot where it's like can we end this? Is it over yet? Because there's just and I as I get done saying there's not a lot to talk about, there's somebody hopping in that I'm sure is plenty to talk about as Sean joins us.
I'm mad that he missed my sequelaly to start the show.
So he can listen to it back.
I'll definitely get it on the flip side.
But I guess asking you how you're doing is a dumb question, Sean.
Yeah, it's been a good couple days. I just keep walking around. I got some dead air to fill. It's EAGLES Eagles just all day. I made several fifth graders cry that told me they were going to lose. Made sure they learned their lesson real good. One kid came in, and this is the same kid told me we'd lose to the Commanders and the Chiefs. Then he came in and said, "Hey, congrats on the win." And I was like, "All right, thanks. That's nice of you." And as he left, he's like, "I was just kidding. My teacher told me to say that. I like the Chiefs, so I was sad when they lost." And so as I shut the door, I told him, I was like, "Well, to be fair, to lose, your team would have had to show up to the game." And I shut the door on him. It's the last I saw him. I think he still goes there.
Like we were just saying, like we were trying to just kind of recap the game.
Yeah.
And like I was saying to Mike, I feel like there's not a lot of game to recap because it was just a one-sided drubbing.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some things when you're looking back, you kind of look at what people are saying about it, and there's some questionable things like that Saquon wasn't effective or things that, man, they really shut down Saquon and they stopped the big runs, but I mean Saquon was very effective in that game. A lot of the Jalen runs were because of Saquon blocks, and I thought Saquon did what he needed to do. You set up second and medium versus second and short and long. You set up third and short instead of third and long. They're not big runs, but he did what he had to do. I think, the one stat that and it's the one that everybody noticed at halftime, for the Eagles to come out and at halftime have more points than the Chiefs had yards. Like, if there was one stat that summed up any single part of the game, I thought at halftime that stat was it. Because Pat couldn't do anything.
Yeah, it was. It was as lopsided of a game that I can remember seeing when one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game. Okay,
allegedly,
when at least since he's come into the league.
Yeah,
let's at least call it that, right? Because the other things can be discussions for another day in the off season. But for the guy who has been as dominant of a player since he's come into the league to be that ineffective, both because his receivers weren't helping him, but the offensive line wasn't doing it, the running game wasn't doing it. It was just everything. And when I say everything, I mean the defensive line. That's it. Coming at him, and he can't do anything. Like that tells you how good the Eagles were on the defensive side.
And that's the other stat. There were two stats that should jump off the page. One is that halftime stat and how lopsided it was at the half. And the other is the fact that there were 6 sacks with 0 blitzes. Like 0. Never had to dial one up. No linebackers coming in. No corners breaking off coverage. Didn't have to disrupt anything because there was nothing to disrupt. The one other thing, and your guys' take on what it means, I guess, would be the one testament to how flawless it was going for Philadelphia. To me, I said at halftime, I said, well, this next 10 minutes is going to be what you got to sweat because Andy Reid is the best coach in football at adjusting. And he didn't make a single one.
No.
There was no adjustments, which I don't know if that speaks more to normally we adjust to like weaknesses we've seen or like normally we adjust to things that are, like we play to our strengths. And I can't decide if it was just like there's no point. I'm curious what you guys think the mindset would be there. Andy Reid just being very uncharacteristic of himself.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mike.
I guess I'll just, lead with this. How many times did they score more than 24 points this season?
I think against the Bills.
Because it doesn't
their
feel like
highest
there
total.
was
What'd they have that game?
30, I think. Was it not?
They had 32 against the Bills in the playoffs.
Okay.
Otherwise, their highest point total of the year was
2 against Cincinnati.
No, they had in week 12, they had 30 against the Panthers.
Okay, you were down 24-0 to a defense that was literally in your backfield before he got the snap.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I like Andy Reid. Great coach, Mount Rushmore of coaches. There wasn't a change to make there.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
Nothing. Your run game is ineffective. Your pass game can't give Mahomes more than 8 seconds to actually, from the time he gets to the line of scrimmage, not even when he says hike, just from when he gets to the line of scrimmage to the ball and getting tackled to the ground.
In week 9 as well.
They have never been a high-scoring team this season.
Nope.
They were never getting 24 unanswered to get back in this game.
No.
I will say this about, because a lot of comparison, well, Tom Brady down, 28-3, came back. That Patriot team could score. They had scored a lot in the regular season. It was different.
And they could do it fast when they needed to.
Correct. This Chiefs team wasn't a quick strike offense.
No.
This team was let's hold the football, let's score 20 points knowing that our defense was going to keep us in a game. It don't work that way whenever you get your doors blown off you in the first half.
Well, in this exact panel, these three gentlemen right here, last week, I believe, we made it very apparent to our listeners that if it was going to be a Chiefs shot in hell, they were going to have to keep it close. And if it was going to be one-sided, it was not going to be Kansas City.
No.
Because they couldn't afford to get in a shootout. And it was just amazing because the Eagles it wasn't really a shootout. It was field position. It was line of scrimmage. It was all the right things they do. And the Chiefs just couldn't get it to our side of the field. So, I think that does say a lot.
Shout out Cooper DeJean has as many receiving touchdowns, actually more than DeAndre Hopkins in the Super Bowl.
It's true.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm going to body bag DeAndre Hopkins all night because all I had to hear was that he was the difference maker. He was the difference maker when they traded for him.
I thought there was a shot he could be in this game because I didn't know who was going to be covering who and what. But when you let that secondary drop back into zone every play and like mix in some man, they didn't have to really work. And for Pat to not recognize that and throw several throws into the middle, does this for you guys? I don't know what you covered ahead of time. Is this in your opinion, is this the worst quarterback performance you've seen, at least in semi-recent memory?
Well, before you get there,
Super Bowls, you mean?
In like quarterback performance in a Super Bowl, can you think of one worse? I know the numbers look better at the end of the game because
I can't.
Before I go there, I did say that. I did say that before you got on that your guys' ability to not have to blitz made the middle of the field harder to get the football into because you didn't have to blitz the linebackers. So I don't even know that if he was able to get the ball out of his hands faster, that it would have made that big of a difference because could have gotten broken up, could have gotten dropped because there was enough of those.
Well, and that wasn't his first throw over the middle either. I think Coop was just waiting. He's like, look, watch his eyes. And as soon as he did it, Coop made that break before the receiver did. It was Pat didn't disguise anything. I think Pat was just excited he still had the ball and it had been a few seconds.
Right.
Okay, Dana with a good point. That is, if that counts as recent memory, that would probably be worse.
Yeah. Where was that? Peyton Manning was bad in the Broncos Super Bowl, and that was
Rough.
A good defense.
that was the Broncos
Seahawks,
right?
42-9, when the defense just literally got after his ass the whole night.
Wasn't that like a snap over the head safety to start the game?
Yes.
And it was
First score of the game. First score of the game, they yeeted it over.
That was 11 years ago.
Yeah,
I would say that's recent memory then.
Well,
yeah, 11 years ago. That
the
counts.
First one in the worst performance in a decade. We can say that.
So, Austin Gale on Twitter at Austin Gale _. Patrick Mahomes is negative 0.62 EPA per drop back through the first 3 quarters. So this is before he stat padded with the couple touchdowns at the back end. is the worst of any game of his career and the second worst of any quarterback in the Super Bowl since at least 2000.
Oh, jeez.
Not great, Bob.
And like the no blitz thing, like, I mean, I thought Michigan blitzing 5 times in a 13-10 win over Ohio State. Win over Ohio State in the end of November wasn't the fact that they only blitzed 5 times in a game and won was insane. But to blitz 0 times, and to the point about like the margin of victory and what, you know, what game was going to play into what team's hand. The Chiefs won 17 games this season by a total margin of plus 71 in the wins. They won 17 games by an average of 4.17 points. Like the minute this game got to 14, it was dead.
Well, and I said last week, if they could get to 2, like when it was 10 and the Chiefs still didn't do anything, I was like, they're in trouble. And they got in more trouble.
So this same article that had that tweet has the fact that Rich Gannon was the quarterback who had the worst EPA.
Okay.
He threw 5 interceptions, including 3 pick sixes in the game that Tampa beat the Raiders.
That was a bad one. I was watching it with Rich Gannon's cousin.
So,
Jesus.
So then he goes, if we look at the last 7 years, just the last 7 years of the Super Bowl, and filter out garbage time performances, here's where their EPAs score. Bing bong, bing bong bong. Hey, Jeremy.
Bing bang bong.
Patrick Mahomes from 2022 was number 1. It was 0.559. Brady from 2020, 0.546. Jalen Hurts, 3.25. Top 3.
Okay.
In 14th place, Patrick LaVon Mahomes II from Sunday night. Negative 1.248. You want to know who was 13th? Jared Goff from 2018. He was negative 0.382. He was 4 times worse than Jared Goff.
In a Super Bowl where there were no points scored.
Oh man.
That's my god.
Yeah, that's
holy shit. Even I didn't know it was that bad.
That's brutal.
So trade Mahomes for Goff straight up.
There you go. Straight up.
Right now. Make the
right
deal.
now, do it.
You know what? I would love to hear Lions fans' thoughts on that. Not just Chiefs fans. I would love to hear Lions fans' thoughts on that. Because I feel like Jared Goff has been embraced by the city of Detroit.
That like Dan Campbell locker room, Jared Goff, you're good enough for fucking Detroit.
Dude, exactly.
That's their guy.
Yeah,
that's their guy.
You know, because like they're the team nobody wants. That he's the quarterback nobody wants. Like, I don't look. I'm not sitting here implying that Lions fans would not want Patrick Mahomes in a Lions uniform, but like, I feel like they like Jared Goff. He'd
probably like that offensive line in front of him.
Probably. So since we're talking about the Chiefs, and Sean, I'll start with you. What is actually, Mike? I should probably start with you because we'll leave the Eagles questions to Sean last.
Yes.
What does this loss mean for the Kansas City Chiefs. Actually, before we did, Devin did say he's like he did not see this coming. And look, I know that we did say last week that if there was going to be a blowout, it was going to be the Eagles. So we were right on that front. But like, none of us were predicting the blowout.
I hinted that I wanted to,
but again,
I just refused to do it.
Right.
Homer.
So like, none of us had the balls to pull the trigger on it.
There you go.
But we at least acknowledged that was the potential that was there. Devin says it sucks. Not only our teams, our favorite teams not winning the Super Bowl, but me having to watch the Eagles do it. But whatever. I feel like not that I'm happy with it, but if there's anything that can make Jerry Jones look worse, it's the more success within the NFC East. I was talking to my one of my
that
colleagues
goes for the success in Washington probably more,
right?
Because you knew the Philly was surging. To
see what the last
Washington
4
surge
teams
before
playing
they
are
did.
in your division.
If the Giants somehow surge before Dallas does, it's going to get real bad.
And here's the thing. And I know this does sound crazy, and it's probably unlikely due to their piss poor management. Right. But like, if the Giants get a true franchise quarterback, put a couple more pieces, running back, another receiver around Neighbors, and build some pieces around that defense, they are not, and this is where I'm saying, they are not far from passing the Cowboys.
Well, the defense at times this year in New York,
their defense is good.
Yeah, like they
don't have an offensive line. They have
no pass rush. Yeah.
Besides Neighbors, they don't have a running game. They had one, obviously lost it. But like, they're not far from passing the Cowboys.
No. I think the other wide receiver. I think you have a Jalen Hyatt that's young there, who they can't seem to figure out what to do with, and you have a good possession guy in Wan'Dale Robinson. And a decent young tight end. I mean, they could probably use a little upgrade there, but I mean, those pieces are there. I think if you put some cornerstones at the line, and like you said, find the Danny Dimes you thought you had,
right?
You're right. I think there's plenty of weapons there, and I think you have a tale of 2 different failures in the Giants and the Cowboys right now. Yeah. You have one team that's, because the Giants are trying, was cutting Saquon Barkley terrible choice? Yes. Was paying Daniel Dimes, but their moves, and like when a coach is acting poor, they go out and find one that in their mind is a good one, and are they bad shots? Sure, but they're taking shots. And then on the other one, you have the no offseason moves.
Let's hire Brian.
Let's hire our mediocre at best offensive
who doesn't even call plays.
He doesn't even call the plays. It's like watching a sabotage happen to your own. It's because, I mean, even a bad gambler occasionally will hit a bet. And if the Giants do that before the Cowboys do, which if the Cowboys aren't betting on anything is likely, then I think that's what happens.
The Cowboys are holding on 6.
I think there's a legitimate chance in the next 3 to 4 years the Dallas Cowboys could finish 4th of 4.
At this point, I want it to happen because we'll talk about Super Bowl odds for next year already. The early ones that came out, but spoiler alert: Cowboys aren't near the top.
Not near the top.
In fact, they're the 4th lowest in the NFC. The only teams lower than the Cowboys in terms of Super Bowl odds for next year are the Giants, Panthers, Saints. That's bad company, bro.
It's not a place you want to be.
So the NFC South plus Dallas.
Yeah,
pretty much. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal. But Mike, what does this loss mean for the Kansas City Chiefs?
It means that it's time to figure out some things, some long-term things. Offensive line needs to be addressed. It needs to be addressed yesterday. You got to figure out what you're going to do because there is a world where Travis Michael Kelce is going to retire. You lose him, you got Worthy. You have Rashid Rice until he does something else stupid while driving a vehicle that he shouldn't be driving.
Yeah. That's a good piece, though.
Dumbass.
So you have the 2 of them. That's fine. But you need to address the offensive line. You need to get pieces on that defense re-signed. And you have to then take a step back and look in the mirror and go, we need to address what the run game's going to look like because Isaiah Pacheco, Kareem Hunt ain't it.
Well, and I don't even know if Kareem Hunt will play with them another year.
Probably
I
not.
guess if he wants, but
I don't know that Pacheco's.
Not.
I don't know that Pacheco's
no,
the guy
it's
either.
Pacheco's show at first, but they got to get somebody behind him. I'm with you there.
Because I mean, at this point, if you're looking throughout the National Football League, I don't know that there's actually a running back that's out there that you look up and you go, I want to go get that guy in free agency.
Well, they like old guys. LeGarrette Blount's, or is he still around?
Probably somewhere.
But there is a world where when you look at this team, if you're telling me that their window is still increasingly active right now, and it's not the back end of it where we're starting to see the decline in the window, maybe this is a make a trade and go get a good running back. Maybe this is a draft Ashton Genty at 32 or 31 if he falls there. Things like that, okay, you might want to draft an offensive lineman, but trading for Trent Williams probably sounds a lot better than putting a rookie at left tackle.
Okay.
Trading for pieces that are veterans that are ready for guys like Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa, who you play twice a year, technically as of right now, unless they get cut by the Chargers. More on
that's
that.
Another fear for the Chiefs is you have some surging AFC West teams, climbing the ranks. So you
don't get a cakewalk in the West anymore.
Nope.
Because you even got punched in the mouth a couple times by lowly old Vegas.
Right.
Vegas had a shot to beat you.
Money. Vegas is spending money. I think they're going to come out
100%.
Checkbook open. Yeah.
I mean, they beat the Chargers twice by a combined score of 9. Like, and one of those, was a kind of fluky bounce off of the inside of the upright. So yeah, I mean, and I'm not counting the drubbing by the Broncos to close the year because that doesn't
count.
Chiefs
Carson
practice squad.
That was on purpose.
It was
damn right it was. You're goddamn right.
But yeah, it's for me. I agree. I think the Chiefs kind of have to take a look in the mirror because in some lights, you have a lot of young talent on that team, but your critical pieces are aged, or possibly gone. Like we don't know what Travis Kelce is going to do, but I do know that Travis Kelce looked steps behind the game on Sunday.
Yeah, it was rough. And I mean, the only hope, I think the only thing I saw on Super Bowl Sunday that might hint to me that he could come back is how angry he looked at the end. But but when your goal's a Super Bowl, like, it's not like, man, I got to get out there and play 16 games. When you're trying to do it again, you're trying to play 18, 19, 20 games. If you're not in the number 1 seed, like, that's a lot of games, man.
I think if you're Kelce, though, at this point, you have to look in the mirror and you got to go, am I willing to put my body through this?
Like, you're already a face now. You're a face of the NFL. You have game shows. You have advertisements. People know who you are.
You have the biggest podcast in football history.
And I don't think there's much of a question. The only real discussion will be he'll be tossed around as a best tight end of all time, probably with some other names, kind of like we do with quarterback roulette. But he's probably not going to win that discussion. But will he get to Canton his first ballot? Yeah, probably. I don't know what else he has to prove, really.
I think the big sticking point was that Antonio Gates didn't get there because he didn't win a Super Bowl, but Gates was a great tight end. Kelce has 2 Super Bowls.
And I will say this. I think Kelce's a phenomenal athlete. I think he's great at the position. Definitely a more fun personality than Gates. But Gates was a far more dominant tight end than Kelce, in my opinion. I feel like just the physicality.
Well, yeah, because Gates was kind of at the tail end of like the physical tight end, whereas Kelce came in and has thrived.
He took what Tony Gonzalez was doing and helped finish revolutionizing that position.
Yeah, he came in an era where the tight end started to change into a blocking playmaker as opposed.
Without Gates, there is no Travis Kelce, probably.
Oh, for sure.
You
for
wouldn't
sure.
have this type of offense about, yeah.
But yeah, Sean, you're now if I had to put money on it, if I had to like bet retiring or returning, my money would go on returning right now.
See, I'd bet walk.
Now, see, I because like again, in your point about the whole best ever, where's he going to rank? Like again, this team, albeit
Yeah, I don't know.
blown
I'm like
off
near
the
the
field,
middle. I'm
blown
like
off
near the
the
middle.
field blown off the field on Sunday, but you got there. You were there for your chance at a third in a row. Maybe just maybe, we get the gang back together, put a couple more pieces on the bus, and let's see if we can do it one more time.
Yeah, I think for me, like, it wasn't so much. I feel like the sting of that, like how much that loss hurt and how bad it made them look. Just quick spin it in my head. I didn't expect that question. So, yeah, maybe I am more like 55-45 stay.
So according to Spotrac, he has last year in his contract.
Right.
So next year, I think is it no matter what.
Yeah, he's not going to sign another contract.
At the age of 36, because that's what he will be in the 2025-2026 season, he has a $4.5 million base salary and a $12.5 million roster bonus and a cap hit of almost $20 million.
Yeah.
If I'm the Chiefs, I'm asking him to restructure if he wants to come back. Find a way to retool that.
Well, you have to ask him that with the mindset that we're going to use that money to make this team better, right?
Oh, I mean, absolutely.
And I wouldn't be surprised if in Kelsey's brain he's not holding out, and like he's going to wait on this. And if the Chiefs just sit there and say we're good enough, maybe he walks. And if they make a play, maybe he comes back. Maybe that's kind of where he's at.
They have $15.7 million in cap space from their top 51 players, which is 22nd in the National Football League.
Yeah, they got to find a way to work a lot of his cap hit into bonuses so they can open up some cap space.
You think they ask Pat to restructure?
I would.
With be like, look, man, if you don't want to get hit like that,
like I mean, let's be honest. You're drafting 31st in the first round. You're not finding a Joe Alt. You're not finding a Zach Martin. You're not finding, you're not finding the best ever at this offensive line position, most likely at 31. And if you want to win now, you want to get the gang back together. You want to bring Kelsey back. You want to try to make another big swing at this. You got to go out and get the pieces that are going to give you the opportunity. So
I have another idea of someone that they could restructure or try to find a way to eat some of the dead cap space that he could fucking have attached to him.
Who's that?
Harrison Butker. That guy, listen to this shit.
He didn't even do anything in the Super Bowl.
His cap hit, his dead cap hit, if they were to release him tomorrow, $15.7 million in dead cap space. They are paying him
to cut him.
They're paying him $3.7 million this year or next year, $5 million in 26, 5.7 in 27 and 28. Why are we paying kickers so much?
Seriously, bro. Why?
Especially when they flip so fast.
Like, Justin Tucker, great kicker.
Well,
miserable this year, and now horrible human being.
I was gonna say, he flipped in multiple ways.
He didn't even let me finish.
This year. Some unforeseen, others really unforeseen. But yeah, I mean the shelf life of a kicker goes real quick. I mean, it was only a couple of years ago where Mason Crosby was still the man in Green Bay, and man, that it happens quick. All right, a little bit quicker. Sean, anything else as to what this loss means for the Chiefs? We went a little heavy-handed on it.
Yeah, that's fine. I think the loss for the Chiefs, I think it means that you found a learning point. I mean, we talk about some of the things they need to learn, but it's definitely one of those moments where you have to look back on, and if they're going to turn it around, it has to be something you remember, where you're like, like nothing's guaranteed. Like it doesn't matter if it's a three-peat. if there's anything, any of those things, there's nothing just given to you because you have like the best quarterback. And I think you have to learn with that. I think the other thing it means for the Chiefs is like, look, don't panic, right? Like you still won 17 games. Like you can't just lose your mind. You're going to lose fans. That's going to happen. Of course, jerseys cost a lot. Maybe they wait a year. But man, there's so much you can learn from it. I don't know what it means in the grand scheme of things. I don't think it tarnishes a legacy. I don't think,
No.
Does it mean you can't stamp that three-peat somewhere? Sure. But like, I don't think anybody's going to discredit any of those stars necessarily for it. But man, yeah, it was.
I mean, here's the deal: some
great.
of the best teams in the NFL's history, the Patriots dynasty, Steelers dynasties, 49ers dynasties, Cowboys dynasty. None of them won 3 in a row.
No.
The Cowboys.
Patriots had a shot, but we won the one in the middle.
The Cowboys in the 90s were the first team in NFL history to win 3 Super Bowls in 4 years.
Yep.
Like anything beyond back to back, it does not happen in the NFL.
Nope. No,
so anybody trying to discredit the legacy of this,
I don't think
this
it means
run would be asinine.
A ton for
Foolish.
the Chiefs. I think it means, reset, think it over, take your time off, and come back to it in a month or two and see what you can spend.
And here's the thing too that kind of gets lost on a lot of people when you see teams win back-to-back championships and try to make another run, whether it's in any sport. Because I'm seeing it with this year's version of the Hershey Bears, who have played 2 very long hockey seasons, have had about a total of 6.5 weeks off in the past 2 years. Eventually, it's going to catch up to you. And I understand football has a longer off season, less games. It's still a lot of football played. They've played more football than anybody else. So.
I think just real quick, the biggest thing it means, like I think what I was trying to build to, is kind of like the one thing it means for the Chiefs is that you have to make sure that what happened to you on Sunday is not a blueprint for teams that play you next year. So whether it's getting free agents, whether it's changing your coaching, whether it's changing schemes, whatever the case it is, you need to make sure that you address what happened, because if not, like you said, there's Khalil Max out there. There are other defensive players, and there are very good defensive coaches that will exploit it if you have the same situation going against them, even if it's a regular season game. That would be my takeaway.
They got to go find a left tackle. Joe Tooney played left tackle in the Super Bowl. He's a guard by trade. Go get you a left tackle that can protect Patrick's blind side. Figure out some formational things.
Bullock? Have her go find you a left tackle.
Yeah. Run the dang ball, Bert.
I saw that on a movie screen.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I'm just revamp the offense. Take the time off, readjust. Don't reset all the way, because you reset all the way, we're blowing this thing up.
They don't need to do that. All right, a little bit quicker on this one, because I mean, hell,
they won.
The better part of the recap was what is it for me? And I'll kick it off. I'll kick it to Mike, and then down to Sean. But for me, what does this mean for the Eagles? Bring as much of this back as you can. Like there will undoubtedly be some pieces that move on. Kellen Moore's already gone to New Orleans, but bring as much of this team back as you can, because you played about as perfect of a game, and really beyond the first 4 weeks of the year, as about as perfect of a season that they could have. So there's not really a lot to change here. Mike.
Yeah. It's obviously addressed a couple pieces that may move on. Brandon Graham might retire. You might lose. You may cut loose Darius Slay, who's like 34 now, and you might try to eat.
Who has tweeted at one point that this was before the last home game. He tweeted that this was probably his lane game in Philadelphia.
Lane Johnson's 35, so it's obviously get as many of those pieces back in there. Find you an offensive coordinator that isn't going to come in and try to reinvent the wheel, because guess what? You don't need to reinvent it. You figured it out fairly good and fairly easily here. The other thing here is, be thankful. Be thankful that the New Orleans Saints hired the worst coordinator out of the two, and they left Vic Fangio there so that you could actually just keep blowing people up with the front four.
Yeah, Sean.
Yeah, I mean, this was a very statement-making period at the end of a season-long sentence. I took some flack at times for putting the Eagles too high in my rankings, but I've felt it was the best roster in the league all year. You can call me that if you want. This homer won a Super Bowl.
You did.
We did.
But just
but
as we've told EJ in past seasons, because he's been a Chiefs homer, that just because you get it right at the end doesn't mean it was right at the time. That's what we'll.
Okay, fair enough.
We'll treat you the same way almost that we treat EJ.
When I saw flashes of what happened on Sunday,
There's a reason why he's not here.
That's when I bumped him up, when I was able to see flashes of what I saw Sunday. And I think you're right. It was a long season. There was a couple losses due to injury, a couple Jalen Hurts missing losses, a couple receivers missing losses. Beyond that, one or two slip-ups. I thought it was just as smooth sailing with a healthy roster as anyone in the league. And I'm sure a healthy Detroit would have put a hiccup in it, but they weren't there. So what do you learn going forward? Well, I think you're right. You try to bring the gang back as much as you can, and in order to do that, you need to preach the culture. You have to make sure these guys understand and appreciate the culture that they have, like how much everybody seemed to believe in everybody, how much this team has believed in some players. Guys like Becton need to speak up and be like, do you have any idea how hard it is to find a situation this great? He was bawling on the sidelines on Nick Sirianni's shoulder, which, by the way, is a guy the size of Becton, hugging and embracing Nick Sirianni. Nick Sirianni just disappears. It was a pretty insane one. But you've got the pieces. You've got very young pieces on defense. Try to convince Sweat to come back. If he won't do it because he chases some money, then you just need to find another one. We have several in the fold already, but you may have a defensive end or a pass rusher to replace in him, and I think Graham's gone. I think that was the swan song there. It was supposed to be, and getting to play in it was phenomenal. But I think that you now have, whether people want to discredit your quarterback's ability to throw from a pocket or to be a pure passer or whatever other criticism he's going to get, the one thing he's proven both 2 years ago and this year is when it's the playoffs, when it's a big game, when it's a shiny stage full of lights, Jalen Hurts is not going to let you down. Jalen Hurts is going to play his best, because I would argue that 2 years ago until this year was the best performance you had seen from Jalen Hurts. And I thought it might be the best you would ever see against Kansas City. And he did it again in a couple of games this year. Wasn't asked to do quite as much, but in this game he had to, at least offensively, to move the chains because they were keying on the run, and he did everything in his power. So I think you have all the cornerstone pieces. Don't break it up. Use it as a foundation. Let's go out and try to at least get one more.
Yeah. I had questions written down. How do the Eagles and Chiefs, how do they get back to the Super Bowl? I think we've already kind of hashed those out pretty well. For the Chiefs, it's fix it offensively. Eagles don't really change a whole lot. Change as little as you can. And I think that that gets you back. So just looking ahead in the crystal ball towards next year, towards Santa Clara. The odds, this is per ESPN bet. I know depending on where you get your odds, the Eagles are number one. ESPN bet has them in technically second at plus 700, along with the Bills and the Lions. The Chiefs and Ravens are at plus 650. But looking at rounding out the rest of the top 10, technically 11, because the Chargers and Rams are tied. You have the 49ers at 14-1, Bengals 16-1, Commanders and Packers 20-1, Rams, Chargers 30-1. To Devin's question earlier, the Dolphins, I think it was via DraftKings, are plus 6,000 for next year. So there's value there if you want to put
throw $10 on them, Devin.
Yeah.
At least at the end of next year, you only have lost $10.
Yeah, I'll probably put a little bit down, as is my tradition with my sports teams. I'll put some down on.
I wish I had this year, but I probably would have screwed it up. So
Yeah. I mean, I had done it for Notre Dame and missed that close to $1,200. But so looking at this list, and Sean, I'll start with you. Besides, and I'll take this one away from you. Besides the Eagles not being the favorite,
Okay.
What's the best or worst thing about this top 11?
The best or the worst? Well, the only thing I don't know what I think is super correct. I mean, I know the Ravens would be high. I think with the holes we expressed with the Chiefs, they could be a little lower. But I understand that being like, I don't want to use the phrase America's team, but kind of the popular choice right now. Probably good to just have them high. I think the Bills are weirdly high for me. Like, I feel like yes, they won a ton of regular season games, but I think with the question marks I've pointed out on defense, with still really no one to help Josh Allen, if they started making some moves and pushed up to this point, I'd be like, okay. But if they run with the same roster next year, they don't belong anywhere near those other teams that they're in the middle of. Good for Mike with the Bengals at 16-1. I guess they got some credit for learning how to play defense in the last 6 quarters of the season. So that's something to build on there. I think your smartest bet on this list, if I was going to pick one, because obviously, you got to throw a ton of money at the top of the list to do it. I think that Commanders at 20-1 is fairly juicy at 20-1. I don't know, because I think they're going to spend a bunch of money and that number is going to shrink. So I would bet it now if you think they have a shot. And the Chargers, same thing. I think depending what the Chargers do, they may shoot up this list a little bit just because people will start betting them. But not a bad list. This far out, I really – there's nothing glaringly great. But those were the couple teams that just kind of felt a little misplaced or felt like a good play to me.
Mike, same question to you.
I'll take the homerism out of the equation because I don't really want to talk about the Cincinnati Bengals right now because I don't want to say
No
something
one does,
that
Mike.
I'm not going to I'm sorry. Student of the game, Kyle Nash and Ernest E.J. Christian had a lot to talk about them on the Student of the Game report. So, yeah, I listen, guys. Don't worry about it. Best bet out of all of this, in all honesty, aside from the Commanders, because I think that is one that I would look into. The Lions, obviously. I just think they're going to get healthy. I think they're going to draft
One
well.
would hope. Yeah.
I know there's questions with the coordinators, but I think this is one of those where we're going to find out how good of a coach Dan Campbell really is. So I like them at plus 700. Maybe depending on how free agency goes, they fall a little bit more. So maybe I'm in a holding pattern on the Lions.
Slide there, yeah, but they're going to be a popular bet if they slide.
But I'll say this as the quote most overrated portion of this show. Somebody on this panel who's hiding because Patrick Mahomes lost in a Super Bowl had 10 green toes down in Lambeau.
It's so goddamn rude.
It's so goddamn true.
He ain't lying.
At the end of the day, 10 green toes, 10 yellow toes, 10 cheese toes don't matter. How the fuck are the Green Bay Packers 20-1?
They still don't have a wide receiver one.
No.
Don't worry, Josh Jacobs said that too. And guess what? I think all those wide receivers are not going to ask for a trade because they don't want to play with him.
Well, they got to unload some. How many wide receivers twos are you going to have? He's right. They
47 of them.
Yeah, you still don't
watch him go get Cooper Kupp, who I feel plays like a wide receiver too.
Cool.
Like,
so
look, we got you one.
6 games for the Packers next.
We got you a slot wide receiver.
Yeah, and like cool. That's great. Like his body didn't hold up in sunny and warm California.
No.
Indoor California.
Yeah. But I think the Packers are kind of funny right there. But I mean that's kind of where I've had the Packers all year is like
you're telling me
right
good.
Now, might not be good.
At 20-1, you're telling me today that
they're the same bet as
Chris Godwin or Keenan Allen or T. Higgins or Stephon Diggs is playing wide receiver for them. Because there's no way that at 20-1 against a Detroit Lions team who had more injuries than almost any other team that I've seen in leading into a playoff game. They're not better than them. They're not better than Philadelphia. They're not better than the Niners. They're not better than I don't think they're better than the Rams, and that's with them trading Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, I guess hearing 20-1 just blind. Like if someone had been like the Packers are 20-1, I probably wouldn't have scoffed at it as much. But now that I'm looking at the other team, like that is 20-1, and even the Rams behind them at 30-1, I'm like 20-1 doesn't make any sense. If that's the other.
And you penalized Minnesota because you don't know if Sam Darnold's going to be there and play quarterback. You don't know what you're getting from JJ McCarthy.
Imagine saying that 2 years ago.
Yeah, it was wild. I can't believe
we're going to penalize a team because they might not have Sam Darnold.
I mean, they got it right by not re-signing Kirko Chains.
But yeah, this is it's an interesting list. I'll give it that.
Yeah, I mean,
it's about as effective as looking here in the way too early college football preseason rankings where the transfer portal isn't even done yet.
Yeah,
oh,
I mean, this is.
I mean, I like the odds a little bit better because it's you're just playing into degenerate hands. Like when you're talking about preseason, rankings at the end of January. That's absurd.
Okay, hypothetical. If Travis Kelce announces his retirement tomorrow, the Chiefs go to what? Plus 1,000?
Yeah, but
I think people are still going to believe in Mahomes enough. I mean, the fact that the Bills are where the Bills are, I don't think the Chiefs are any worse than them as a roster without Kelce.
Yeah, they might bump to +7, +750.
Their receivers are on par. Their running backs. I mean, is Pacheco as good as Cook? Probably not, but I don't think either of them are that great without the quarterback in front of them. And the Chiefs probably have a better defense than the Bills. So I don't. I would think the Bills should fall, and the Chiefs would probably fall to about the same point. I think that's where I would be at.
Yeah. I think the Eagles should be at the top, which is gross for me to say, but it's the reality of the situation. The Eagles are the least unknown going into the offseason because, again, besides a couple of aged pieces or one, maybe two guys that are going to chase a contract, most of this team's going to be back, and they just showed that they were the best team available at the healthiest that you can be at this point of a season. Again, I can hypothesize that Detroit would have done to Kansas City what the Eagles did to Kansas City if they would have been healthy.
Right.
But we don't know what Detroit would have done with Philly. In the NFC title game.
Would have been a heck of a game.
It would have been a great game.
Am I allowed to read you the don't do meth quote of the week?
Sure.
I didn't know we had those. This is exciting.
You're welcome. Quote, I feel like we've competed with the Eagles and beat them for the most part when we've played them. I don't want to say, quote, check the record when the other guy is holding the trophy, right? So credit to them. They earned it. They deserve it by all means. But yeah, we're getting very close. Thanks, Dak.
Dak.
Smoke crack.
That was Dak.
Rain Dakota Prescott prior to
Don't smoke Dak.
You're better than this. You're smarter than this. At least I thought so.
He said it Tuesday afternoon.
Imagine being on the Cowboys roster as it sits, quarterback or not, and being like, I should badmouth the Eagles right now because I think we're better than them.
That was one of the ideas, but it wasn't a very good one.
On the bright side for Troy Aikman, I don't think he's the most concussed quarterback in Cowboys history.
He not only
that has to be the result of CTE. Somebody get that guy in a tent.
With Aaron Rodgers, brother ayahuasca.
Like
God.
By the way, when they played him this year,
that's not even a cold take. It's not even a take.
Shut the fuck up, Donnie.
So
my God.
When they played him twice this year, he didn't play in either game. They lost 34-6 and 41-7.
So close then.
Close, maybe.
You can't here. Let's not even. You can't look at this year's games because Cooper Rush is not Dak Prescott.
Sure?
You can't look at previous seasons because I saw some Cowboys fans trying to do that. I'm going to take my own idiot fan base to task on this one because I saw some Cowboys fans trying to do that and saying how, Jalen, Dak is still better than Jalen and look at what he's done to this Eagles team. I go, He hasn't done anything to this Eagles team.
Not at all.
Because this Eagles team, the pieces were never there in previous season. And
this is probably the best Eagles team to ever.
And this is Vic Fangio's first year as the Eagles defensive coordinator. So you literally have no comparison with what Dak Prescott and the Cowboys have done to this Eagles team. You don't.
No, there's nothing to build on.
And on top of that, if you want to make the argument, and I was talking to a colleague about this at work today, if you want to make an argument that Dak at his peak, which was probably like year 4, is better than Jalen Hurts today, be my guest. You can make that claim, and that's fine. However, congratulations, Cowboys fans, on another hypothetical win that is all we have for the last, let's count them, 29. Oh, let's make it 30 because we're not winning the Lombardi in Santa Clara next year. 30 years.
That's a hot take.
Like, congratulations, we've won another hypothetical. Only us and the SEC fans are in battle for the most hypothetical wins in football. Congratulations.
Ironically, my dad joke for my class at the end of last week was going into the Super Bowl weekend was the classic. How many Cowboys fans does it take to change a light bulb?
What's that?
They don't. They just stand around and talk about how bright it used to be.
But yeah, like you want to make that argument, fine. But the reality is, right now, Dak is 5 years older than Jalen Hurts.
Yep.
He's, older, slower, because of age, because of injury. Like, just stop. Stop.
The fact that some people, now I'm not saying they're smart, but the fact that some people have hinted that like keeping Cooper Rush and just letting Dak walk is like a hypothetical scenario. Like, that should tell you where Dak's at in his career.
Well, that's
is Cooper Rush a better play? No. Like, if Dak's got healthy legs and is ready to play and healthy shoulders and bionic limbs and whatever he's got these days,
$6 million man, baby.
Then he can
Sean,
play.
It's the classic. The most popular athlete in the city of Philadelphia is the backup quarterback for the Eagles.
Yeah, like, maybe not this year.
Well, no, not anymore.
But like
that's like. The only reason people were making that argument about Cooper Rush is because he started that year when Dak wasn't healthy yet, and the Cowboys started like 6-0. Like, the reality is they played bad teams, and Cooper Rush is a game manager and just didn't make mistakes. But he's never going to lead you to anything either.
No.
Like, there's a reason Cooper Rush is a backup.
He sounds like, I don't know, Jake Browning in Cincinnati.
Exactly.
Same thing.
All right. Let's close the book. Congratulations to the Philadelphia Eagles and their fans.
Birds, baby,
on winning the Super Bowl. Now let's, before we close the book on the live season until August when we are back and talking about college football and previewing the college football season,